Welcome to Revolution Against Evolution. I'm your host, Doug Sharp.
And I'm your co-host, Rich Gear, with you. And Doug has come up with a very interesting program for us tonight, dealing with Noah's Ark and the rules of logic. And Doug, I'm pretty geeked about this, so with no further ado, let's get our audience into this right now. There's a lot of controversy about Noah's Ark, obviously, over the years for obvious reasons, but even within creationist circles, there seems to be a lot of back and forth stuff. So what's going on, Doug?
Well, I'm using this controversy about the Noah's Ark to actually illustrate something I learned a long time ago in a philosophy class I took at Michigan State University.
Oh boy, that's back in the day.
Yeah, and that was, this class actually got canceled during the riots that they had during that time.
I'll tell you when this happened.
That was in 1971 or something like that.
That was the time.
1970s. But
I remember those.
Anyway, I actually picked up some information in that class, which I still use on a regular basis in my everyday work. And and what it is a way to figure out what is true and what isn't true. And what you do is it gives you a way to sort through all the different possibilities and try to figure out, well, what is the most likely thing that represents the truth. They used something called truth tables. And the way it worked is that they would take all the different possibilities and put them in a grid. And then you'd have a true or false, true and false, and if this one's true and that one's false, it sort of maps out how what the ultimate result is.
Reminds you of the old Sherlock Holmes thing when he used to say, well, when you rule out everything that can't possibly be right, then what's left over, no matter how implausible it may sound, has got to be what the truth is. I thought that kind of reminds me of these things, these exercises. The trick comes in is with Noah's Ark, until you actually have some empirical evidence where you've actually not only got photographs, you've got it basically provenanced and everything else. There's a lot of speculation, Doug, that goes on to that. So
yeah, we're not going to deal in this thing about the mechanism of how Noah's Ark worked. That's a subject for a different
thing. And we're also not dealing with the issue from our perspective. Noah's Ark is a fait accompli. Noah's Ark was a real structure. It was created by a man named Noah, according to the scripture, and it landed on in the mountains of Ararat, whatever those might be. But from there on, Doug, we kind of have carte blanche to kind of come up with a lot of different possibilities, and I think that's kind of interesting.
Let's take a look at what the possibilities are.
All right.
Is that the first one is that Noah's Ark is still up there on Mount Ararat, waiting to be discovered.
Okay.
The second possibility is Noah's Ark isn't there, and if it isn't there, well, it either landed on another mountain, or the Bible account isn't true, which is what the evolutionists want you to believe.
Right.
Or Noah's Ark was on Mount Ararat, but it's no longer. It either got moved or decayed away, or the lumber got scavenged.
Now that last part, Doug, the lumber got scavenged. There seems to be some evidence, even from some of the eyewitnesses, but even early on. I mean, Noah and his three sons would have taken some lumber and built at least maybe an ark or maybe some habitations, perhaps from part of the ark itself. I don't know where they would have gotten their wood from.
Right.
I mean, they could have got wood. If there was wood laying around, it was okay. That's possible, but it seems likely they might have scavenged at least some of it.
Well, there probably would have been a lot of driftwood left over from the flood.
Yeah, would that have been able to be salvaged to be used? I mean, it seems to me the ark itself would have been. It's just wood just laying around. There's nothing else they're going to do.
It'd be waterlogged, right?
Yeah, it'd be waterlogged and pretty nasty stuff. Anyway, but that aside, it doesn't really matter. But that's so, Doug. It's either on the ark on the mountain. It's not. If it's not, then we have possibilities as to why it's not. So.
And the thing about this question of whether Noah's Ark is on Mount Ararat really has no bearing on the truth of the Bible.
I think that's an important issue, Doug, when you think about it, because there are a lot of things we do as creationists. I remember years ago, this is a total different thing, but I remember we spent a lot of argument on whether Lucy's knee was actually could stand upright. And I remember there was a guy who was debating on the internet, And the whole idea about whether a chimpanzee can have an upright knee almost became a moot point when they found these apes in Sumatra that could actually stand upright.
Right, yeah.
But they were nothing but apes. So we spent a lot of time arguing about whether Lucy's knee joint was really discovered by, whether that really belonged to that skeleton. We spent a whole lot of time when it really didn't even matter. And I think this is an issue here with this. If it's not if the question of whether Noah's Ark is on Mount Ararat is really not relevant to whether the account of it is true. And you say, well, it says it landed on Mount Ararat. No, it says it lands on the mountains of Ararat.
Right.
Now, and of course, Mount Ararat itself is the tallest mountain that's there, so it's likely, that could have been a good likely starting place. But there's a whole range of these that are called Ararat Mountains today. The other part of it, Doug, is it possible there were some other mountains called Ararat? That maybe they're lost or different, or well, it's after
we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that a little bit. So there's different possibilities.
Now,
all right.
Let's suppose that we actually found the Noah's Ark
On Mount Ararat.
On Mount Ararat
Or some other
wherever
place.
else it might be. It would really go a long way to help convince people of the truth of the Bible. And
Of course, the people that don't want to believe it, no matter what you do,
they come up with another.
they will come up with another explanation. Yes, always.
And if it was found, there's the possibilities are the first of all, it's real or it's fake or it's something else, or it's a made-up story. And the example of that is that if they find it up on Mount Ararat, in order to convince other people that it's up there, you'd have to actually take them up there to see it. Because you can fake photographs.
Or the people that come down have been provenanced by people that would be basically respectable to such an extent that their veracity would be unquestioned. In other words, if you had, let's say, the National Academy of Sciences went up there and said, no, this baby's up there, then even the most ardent evolutionists or secularists would probably say, okay, I guess that there is a structure that looks like Noah's Ark is up there. But that'd be the only way. That would be the only way.
No, years ago, about 1969 and 1970, I remember getting this Search for Noah's Ark. Actually, it was a film strip. That I got from the Creation Science Research Center out in San Diego. And this was back when I was in the Navy. And I showed that thing to hundreds of people. Because I thought this was the coolest thing, because it told the story of many different sightings of the Ark that took place over many years.
I remember reading several books on that subject around that time. It was the early 70s. It was a big, really popular subject at that time, yes.
Although I don't think it was that well known at that time. It was known amongst
creationists and people who were interested in that. But there was actually a program or two about the discoveries, and some of these testimonies were when I was on national television. I remember that. That was
that was the Sun Pictures thing that took place in the early 80s.
Was it early 80s? I thought it was late 70s, but whatever. Yeah, but anyway.
And when I was writing my book, Revolution Against Evolution, I had every intention of including the stuff in the book, because I thought, well, I had a whole chapter written up on what this Search for Noah's Ark was all about, because it was sort of an integral part of a lot of the presentations I did on creation.
Well, because Doug, for young Earth creation, for those who have not been with us before or just passed through, young Earth creationism has two principles. God created ex nihilo, out of nothing, in 7 24-hour days. And there was a catastrophe that happened called Noah's flood. And those are the things that explain most of what we see in the physical world today.
Right, and it really explains a lot of the geology.
Right. But no, Doug, what kept you from putting the thing in the book?
Yeah, well, I was just looking at it, and I said to myself, first of all, we don't have a consummation of this. We really have not found the Ark. We've got a lot of
hearsay evidence.
And this is something that could quickly become out of date. Once that the Ark was found, and it'd be also kind of moot. And so after praying about it, I really agonized over this. I left the chapter out.
I did not realize
And
this all these years.
I'm actually glad I did, because the whole search for Noah's Ark now is, even amongst creationists, is sort of like there's quite a number of people in the creationist movement now who says that we probably shouldn't spend another dime on the search for Noah's Ark on the Mount Ararat.
Oh, on Mount Ararat, they think we should maybe search for it, but in other places.
Right.
But okay, but Doug, before we go on, there are several sightings when this was going on in the early 70s. Well, actually late 60s, 68 to about 78 was the prime time for all this. There was I was reading a lot of things. I remember reading a book by Earl Cummings, and I can't remember the name of the book. I remember reading a book by Montgomery, I think, and talk about some of the things. But Cummings was these people that they had all the documented sightings, and there was or at least people who claimed to have seen it.
Well, the film strip that I had was one done by Earl Cummings.
It was done by Earl Cummings, yeah.
It went by the book, and what they did was they went back into the historic sightings of Noah's Ark that took place many years ago, and there was one back in, I think it was around 1883, where there was an Armenian fellow by the name of Haji Urim.
Yeah, I remember that
And
name.
Haji Urim took these three fellows up to see Noah's Ark, and these guys were atheists. They wanted to disprove it was there.
Right.
Well, if you don't find it, how do you know that you didn't find it?
Yeah, absence of evidence is not evidence.
Right.
That's one of the primary focus things and rules of logic. But
Well, anyway, according to the account, they found the ark, and they actually tried to destroy it, according to the account. And then there was I guess Haji Urim actually came to America. He talked about his account with a number of people. And then there was supposedly a deathbed confession that one of the atheists confessed that he actually saw it on Mount Ararat, and so that was the one story. There's another story. I guess even before that, it talked about an earthquake that actually formed a lot of the Ahora Gorge.
yeah, that was in the
1840s.
1840s. Yeah, or 18,
And this earthquake, I think, prompted people in a lot of the different sightings. I think before that, there was such a big snow cap that this particular site was covered up. And
Well, even today, unless those days have changed, but I remember, despite global warming stories, it seems to me it only melts down enough about every 7 to 10 years for you to
20
get
years, according to Rick Lancer. So
20. I always heard 7. I heard 7 to 10 years was what I always read. But whatever it is, and then it kind of gets covered up with snow quite a bit, so it's very difficult. Plus, during a lot of this period of time, since the 20th century, the Soviet Union did not like expeditions going up there, especially American expeditions, because Mount Ararat is right on the
it's
border.
about 20 miles from the border.
Yeah, of Russia and Turkey. So anyway, long and short, that caused a lot of problems throughout the entire Cold War era.
Yeah.
All right, so Doug, you got another guy named Prince Nuri. Who's that guy?
Well, he was some fellow who climbed the mountain, and he was a nobleman from some country. I forget who it was, but he was an adventurer.
Sounds like Armenia.
He said that he found the ark and gave an account of it. Hardwick Knight was another one in the 1800s who actually found timbers.
Okay.
And so he documented that. There was a Russian expedition.
This is the famous one. This is about the time when they're going. The Tsar is still ruling in Russia, right?
1914.
1940. Yeah, and they're going up. Really, I thought it was a little bit later than that. Was it 14?
No, it's 14.
And they were going up. But what happened is that they got all kinds of photo documentation
the
and
White Russian Army went up
yeah, and but what happened is by the time they got back, the Bolsheviks had taken over, or as close
Yeah.
by that time, or they had the records there, and the Bolsheviks took over, whatever, I must have been already been there, I'm not really sure, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Right.
But long and short of it, supposedly they still have these records somewhere, and they've covered it up when they were all the communists,
Right,
the
yeah.
communists, but we don't have any evidence of it. They took photographs of it apparently, documented measurements, and all that stuff, and then when the Russian Revolution happened, all that disappeared, you know?
Well, apparently Earl Cummings and a few other people had interviewed one of the fellows who was on that expedition.
Was on the expedition. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Then I guess the most famous one was the account by George Hagopian.
Hagopian, yeah.
And Georgie, he went up and saw the Ark when he was with his father. This was around 1905.
Yes.
And it was from Georgie's description that a lot of the drawings of the Ark have been made with, shows the windows going across the top of it, and
Right.
and that it was showing out of the glacier, and that was that one was I guess the most credible story, because Georgie lived quite a while, and
Yeah, he lived up into the 70s anyway,
Yeah.
because he was doing interviews, and he seemed to be very. He didn't seem like he was trying to hoax anybody. He seemed pretty
Right.
sincere, you know, from what I saw. But yeah, and it's interesting because the image that he drew has become very iconic.
Right, yeah.
Despite Answers in Genesis trying to make a little difference in their new Ark
Yeah, the Ark
drawings.
model now has a little sail on the back end.
A little flange going upward to supposedly stabilize it in the water. Anyway, but Doug, anything else about Hagopian that we want to tell the audience? Anything that sticks out in your
Well, I
mind?
think it's the Hagopian story that still keeps people dogging this,
Mount Ararat.
looking at Mount Ararat,
Yeah.
because his story seemed to be so credible,
Yep.
according to the people who are still searching for it, you know. And there's people like Rick Lancer and others of that sort.
Well, over the years, John Morris, son of
Yeah,
Henry,
John
went
Morris.
up there several times to look at it. Irwin, the astronaut, went up there. There were a lot of people who went up there. Doug, there was something going on. Supposedly an article appeared in the Stars and Stripes magazine during World War II.
Yeah, and
And that was supposedly an expedition of American soldiers at that time.
yeah, the
Do you wanna tell the
flyovers,
audience about that?
the World War II, they flew over it and took pictures of it.
Right.
And they're still looking for that issue of Stars and
Yeah, the one
Stripes.
issue that they say it's in is we can't find the issue.
Yeah, and I guess somebody found the issue in a library someplace, and they had the pictures were cut out.
How can you write a story? I mean, that's just unbelievable, Doug, when you think about that. And that's the only issue extant of that. I can't believe it, you know?
Yeah, you can't win.
You just, But yeah, so that actually was there anything in that issue that talked about the pictures that were taken? All of it was gone?
Yeah, all of it's gone, I guess. So anyway, that's a problem. There was another guy by the name of George Green who was doing some surveying of Mount Ararat as part of his. He had a helicopter and he flew it all over the place.
Uh-huh.
And he had taken pictures of the Ark and brought it back to Texas, where he talked to a whole bunch of different people.
Yeah, I've heard of this guy.
And then he goes off to British Guiana and loses his life, and I guess he was murdered or something.
Yeah, and no pictures.
And all his possessions are missing. And so,
I mean, what is that, to me, Doug? Almost goes beyond the realm of plausibility. It's almost like this is like satanic, man, or conspiracy. Now, Doug, this last guy, or maybe there's another guy before this guy named Fernand Navarra. I remember reading his book.
Noah's Ark, I touched it.
Yeah, and that was a very credible book. Now, he doesn't claim to have found the entire ark, but he found these long timbers that were fossilized or semi-fossilized, buried in the ark, buried in the ice.
He had to climb way down in the crevice to cut them out.
And he cut them out, and apparently they were carbon dated, and they were pretty old. From would have been about the time.
Yeah, he sent them to several different laboratories and got different dates from each laboratory.
That's the problem. Yep. but they were ancient timbers that were found high up on Mount Ararat. All right, so Doug, yeah, some of these, okay, so let's talk about some creationist expeditions that
Yeah,
happened
these
up
were a
there.
little bit more recent, like in 1966, Clifford Burdick went up there.
Okay,
And he didn't find the Ark, but he did a lot of geologic survey of the mountain, and he found things like pillow lava, which he believed that the total was underwater. It fell
yeah, now
underwater.
I'm gonna ask you about that a little bit later on when we talk about the type of mountain that Mount Ararat is. I wanna ask you about that pillow lava, cause I've read that for years, pillow lava can only be formed underwater, and it's at the 15, 16, 17,000 foot level of Mount Ararat.
Right.
So it indicates it must have been underwater at some time.
And then the
All right.
one in the film strip was Errol Cummings. And,
We talked about him, yeah.
He's also the guy who, I guess he landed his airplane at Tuba City. And he's the guy who discovered the dinosaur and human tracks there.
Cummings did?
Yeah, Cummings was the guy who.
Do we know
actually-
where those are at, Doug? Because we tried to find those one day, and they're off.
Well, we found some human tracks.
Yeah, we found some, yeah.
But there are, I guess, some over across the street from there that.
That's the ones that he shot, the ones across the street,
Apparently,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to get permission from the.
Is
Navajo
Earl
Indians.
Cummings, he's gone now, isn't he? He's
I presume
I
so.
think,
Yeah.
and he's been gone for a while, but, and then, we talked about John Morris, Doug.
John Morris, he goes up there.
He's been on there at least
about
7, 8 times, hasn't
Yeah.
he? He got struck by lightning a couple
Yeah.
times. He's had some really harrowing experiences going up on that
Yeah.
mountain. Did he run into some of the Kurdish guys or the
Yeah, the
bandits?
mountain's pretty dangerous.
Pretty dangerous place.
People would like to kill you, and so the people who have gone up there have been shot at, and you have a little bit of competition between the Kurdish people and the Turkish.
Yeah,
You know, it's just a hot spot. You know.
but he never found it. John never found the Ark, but Irwin, the astronaut,
There's a multitude of others, and
Bunch of them.
there's this last one guy by the name of Mr. Ed Davis, and he talked about the Ark being in two different pieces. And
yeah, is that where that's
actually
coming from?
saw-
There's a lot of story about that. Two different. He's the one.
And that one's where he said it was in a very difficult spot to get to.
When did his report come up?
This is late 80s.
Late 80s. Okay, all right.
There's just one other thing. There's a geologic formation that's promoted by Wyatt Hovland and Fasold and a few other people that as being the Ark. And it's a different spot than the Tenderick
Yeah, the Tenderick
Mountain.
Mountain site. That's been, and a lot of TV shows talked about that.
Yeah.
But that's turned out to, when you look at it, it's really nothing but a geologic
Yeah.
formation. It does look like a boat.
Yeah.
It's shaped, but it's really a geologic formation. So, all right, Doug, what are some of the arguments against Mount Ararat being the argument?
Okay, the big one is that stratovolcanoes could not have formed underwater, and Mount Ararat is a stratovolcano.
That's Andrew Snelling, geologist, creation geologist, who's making that
And
argument,
so
right?
he's saying that because Mount Ararat's the wrong kind of volcano, Noah's Ark couldn't be on Mount Ararat.
Okay.
And a person that's on CRSNet, Ann Habermel, has written quite a bit on this, done a lot of research, and she believes it's on Mount Kuti.
Isn't that the Islamic site that they believe? Yeah, that's the Islamic.
Also, Josephus seems to corroborate this in his account.
Wasn't it also called like Al-Jude or something like
Yeah.
that? Or, anyway.
And so that's one thing.
Wait, that's the,
And this gets back to our logic thing. We'll talk about that. Andrew Snelling is a trained, competent geologist. So
Right.
that's the assumption.
so he should
Okay,
know.
He should know, okay. But then you'd have to ask, well, where's the observational research? Was he there?
No, he never has been there, has he?
Well, I don't think so.
Okay.
And what are the physical characteristics of the stratovolcano that prevents it from forming underwater?
This is what I would like to know. I've never heard why it can't form underwater.
Yeah, basically, I guess it's because it's building up and you have the debris falling down in a cone.
But then you got to
shape.
explain the pillow lava at the 17,000 foot level.
Right.
Unless pillow lava can form not in conditions
Well,
not
you can have
underwater.
pillow lava forming underneath an ice cap, I think, is what his argument.
Is that what his argument? Oh, that's fair enough. I just was curious because, all right,
And so, here, let's suppose this is really what it is. Yeah,
Alright.
the possibility is that it rose up before the flood and the remains from the flood. And so, that's not that likely. You would seem to think that the.
or could it have risen up, been partly there and risen up partly afterward, whatever? Okay, all right.
You could say, well, maybe Admiral Snelling's wrong. He could have formed during the flood. And you'd have to change some of the assumptions about geology to do that.
Or stratovolcanic, okay.
The mountain might be a composite volcano, and this is the argument that Rick Lancer.
That's what I was wondering. Parts of it is stratum, parts of it's not, okay.
And then finally, the question is, should we stop research? And there's a few reasons. The Ark expeditions are expensive and they're fraught with peril.
Talked about some of those.
And then there's a lot of fakery that's gone on with this whole
Remember the
thing.
one with
There's
the Chinese expedition?
And a lot of these things are really hurting our credibility by doing this. Then the question is, if you did find it, how would it be verified? And you can have photographs that can be retouched.
I know, I work with Photoshop all the time.
And then, even if you found something, well, like Ann Habermel says, the wood could be that's found up there was from a monastery that was built. And so any of these different things are possibilities. Now, the Associates for Biblical Research, or the otherwise called ABR, this is Rick Lancer's group, and they were debating Ann Habermel on CRSNet back and forth, and you see them take pot shots at each other all the time.
And they deal with the issues of the satellite photos, and some of them have proven to be nothing but formations,
Right.
false positives, and things like that. So it's a running debate, Doug. It's going to be interesting to do. What do you think? We're going to wrap it up. So you think we should continue?
I think we should continue. I think it doesn't hurt to climb the mountain a
Right,
few more
yeah.
times and check out until you get all the rabbit trails covered that you think might have happened.
All right.
And I think that's what we should do. And we'll see you next time on Revolution Against Evolution.